It is a hard time for anyone to buy a house, but especially for medical professionals facing high dollar student loan debt in the background, it can feel impossible. In 2024, the combination of rising interest rates and rising home prices has made housing affordability a crisis. In the last few months, we've seen a small decrease in house prices, which has been a welcome change, but we're still up 4% from last year. That, with the interest rates currently in the sixes for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, has made a situation where it feels like getting into the house of your dreams is impossible. We are going to answer 3 common questions today surrounding the home buying process. 1, should you buy or rent? 2, if you do buy, what should the budget be? And 3, once you've made the purchase, is it a good idea to pay off the house early? I hate the saying that renting is wasting money. Renting can be a very wise financial decision. There are a lot of subjective factors like how long you're planning on staying in a specific location, your family needs, etc., but there's also a lot of math that goes into the equation. The New York Times put together a calculator to help you work through this that I'm going to show you now. This is the calculator. There are a lot of inputs, but the detail is what allows you to get the detailed answer at the end. First, you input the home price if you were to buy. Now, right now, the median home price in the United States is around $440,000, so I've plugged in a random $433,000. Alternatively, if you were to rent, what would your monthly rent be? I've plugged in here $2,125. Of course, if you're in San Diego or Boston, it's much higher. If you're in a rural, small state, then you're likely looking at something less, and everything in between. How long do you plan to stay? This is a key factor because there are a lot of upfront costs associated with homeownership. And so the shorter time horizon you plan to be in a specific place, the less favorable home ownership appears. Then you input your mortgage details. The interest rate you anticipate, your down payment, the length of the mortgage, and what PMI will look like if you face it. Remember that PMI will be inputted into the equation if you use conventional financing and have less than 20% down. But as a medical professional, you may have alternative loan types available to you that will allow you to get into a 30-year mortgage, a fixed mortgage, or even an ARM as less than 20% down and no PMI. So this will be variable depending on what you're eligible for, and you should research your financing options before you make the final decision. Then you plug in the rest of the back-end math, the annual increase in property appreciation that you anticipate, the rent growth rate in your area, your investment return rate in the background, and the inflation rate. Now, why the investment return rate? Well, it's calculating what's called opportunity cost, and it's looking at, for the money that you're spending up front for the purchase and on a monthly basis, what is the opportunity cost of putting that money towards housing when you could have been putting that money towards building actual wealth? And that is one of the coolest parts of this calculator. It then asks some tax questions regarding how you file your taxes, what your property tax rate is, your marginal tax rate, closing costs, cost of selling in the future, maintenance, homeowners insurance, and utilities. Now, you can leave most of these back-end things where they're preset if you want, and if you want to be incredibly detailed, you can actually go through and find the information for yourself. These are the additional renting costs that would come from the terms of your lease. That's it. Those are all the inputs, and then it gives you this output here. For this random scenario, renting would actually save you $114,000 over 10 years. You can see the comparison here. To rent, here are the initial costs, the total recurring cost, so all those monthly expenses over 10 years, total recurring cost, the opportunity cost, and the net proceeds at the end, right? So at the end of buying, you have the net proceeds from the sale of the house. Despite that, it's actually way more favorable from a money standpoint alone to rent given these random underlying assumptions. You can build wealth regardless of if you buy or rent. The key is creating income producing assets and being strategic with your student loan debt. You can get a free spot in the Millionaires in Medicine Club where you can get education on stock bond investing, real estate investing, tax strategy, and more if you click the link in the description below this video. Let's say you've run your numbers and you decide to purchase a house. The next question is, how much house? Most people decide this very randomly based on the houses that they like or what their colleagues have purchased. But there is a very important mathematical rule for you to follow. The rule is easy. Your total housing expenses, mortgage, taxes, and insurance should not exceed 20% of your gross monthly pay. That is your pre-tax, pre-401k contribution, pre-all the deductions pay. The rest is just doing the math. This is Google's free mortgage calculator that anyone can use. Let's again assume that purchase price of $440,000, which is the median purchase price of a home in the United States right now. We'll assume a 20% down payment, which is quite the chunk of change, but maybe you've been saving for a while and you're able to swing that. We'll assume a 30-year fixed rate mortgage at this interest rate. I've used the state of Indiana, that's where I live, with a good credit score as part of the background inputs as well. That will auto-populate an estimate of property taxes and insurance. Remember, there's no PMI in this calculation because you have 20% down in this conventional financing example. You also have no HOA fee. That gives me a total monthly payment of the loan plus the taxes and fees of $2,835. So $2,835 times 5 means that my gross household monthly pay would need to be $14,175. Multiply that times 12, I would need to have a household income of $170,000 per year in order to purchase this $440,000 property following the suggested rules. Now, this might either be a single high earning medical professional or a dual income household with two incomes. Either way, if your household income is at $170K, this median home price is a very reasonable purchase for you. Once you've actually made the purchase, one of the next questions people ask is, should I pay it off early? If you've ever calculated how much money you actually spend in interest on a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, at these interest rates, you're probably tempted to pay it off early to save some of that money. Well, of course, every financial decision you make has an opportunity cost, meaning the money that you're allocating towards the extra mortgage payment can't then be allocated towards investing or wealth building because it's spent another way. Here's an example on the ramifications of that decision. This is a $420,000 house that you have 20% equity in, and your interest rate is 6% on a 30-year term. If you go ahead and pay an extra $1,000 per month to that mortgage, starting at the time of purchase, you're actually going to pay it off in 15 years and 3 months, which is incredible. And you save $265,000 in interest over that time period. Now, what happens instead if you invest that $1,000 per month and you assume 8% returns compounded annually? Well, at the 15-year mark, of course, you've paid more in interest, but you have $351,000 invested. Now, if you just let that sit and compound for another couple of decades, it very easily turns into a 7-figure starter portfolio just on what you did with the investments for 15 years when you could have been paying off your mortgage early. So while it's important to move into retirement in a fully debt-free state, if at all possible, when you're in your 30s and 40s, your investing dollars are more powerful, and it's likely more beneficial for you to allocate those funds towards investing and building wealth, and then think about paying off the mortgage early when your investing dollars become less powerful with age and you near that season of retirement, which you're likely wanting to enter totally debt-free, mortgage included.